Hi everyone! I am so excited. Today I'm going to officially actually start the construction of a project that I have been thinking about since late summer last year. Last year, you can see behind me, I built this raised bed garden enclosure structure. I have a lot of deer that come through my yard every night, so I knew I needed something with some higher walls and a fence. So this is something I made last year. I am not a woodworker, I am not a carpenter, and I did this just out of my own head and based off of a picture on a website of a kit that was, I think, $3,000 in that neighborhood. I built this for several hundred in lumber and labor. Obviously that doesn't include the soil and things, but the kit didn't include that either. So today, because I enjoyed this so much last year, I am going to start building a much bigger structure. I'm going to try to chronicle that over the course of several videos. Today, I'll just share with you a little bit of my planning and also however much I'm able to get started constructing today. So let me turn this. I have here a pile of some 2x4s, a few other types of boards that I'll be using for the structure. Underneath this tarp are a bunch of 2x10x8s, so a thicker, so kind of like as thick as a 2x4, but taller. My plan is to build something similar to this, but much bigger and a little bit different arrangement. So this is in the shape of kind of a U. The new arrangement will have, well, I'll have to explain that in another video. It would take too long. But anyways, similar idea where I've got two 2x10s stacked on top of each other. That I was able to go ahead and add a 2x4 on top. I don't know if I'll do that this time or not. I may save that to be an enhancement for later. And then I'll be putting a type of fencing kind of around the upright poles, which that's what the 2x4s will be. On this structure, I used 2x2s. And I think that was great for this size of a structure. For the new one, I'm going to try using mostly 2x4s because it's going to be a larger. So this is about 8 feet by 8 feet overall. The new structure is going to be overall at least 16 feet by 16 feet. And we'll have more than triple the amount of planting space. So today's task is to get started. I need to cut a few of the boards. I'm going to start trying to get one of the big beds mostly built and lay out some of the other things just to sort of get a feel for how the space is going to work. So let me get some things organized and then I'll take some boards around to where the new garden's going to go and I'll show you the basic layout. Don't forget to protect your hearing if you're using power tools. I'm going to try to explain the plan. This is how I draw my plans. Like I said, I am not a woodworker or a carpenter. I make notes on Post-it notes and then I kind of wing it as I'm going along with my basic plan kind of in my head. So the bed overall is going to be 16 feet with two big beds on either end like this. They'll end up being 3 feet wide because I'm going to put a 2x4 this way in each of these corners and then connect one of the 2x10 boards this way. So this will be 4 inches, 32 inches, and then about an inch or so from a 2x4 that's going to stick out. So this board will die into the short side. This board will meet up, and so the 2x4 will be kind of like in the corner. And then there'll be a few inches that'll stick out because then I'm going to build a shelf here using a 1x4. Oh well, a couple 1x4s. And then here there will be a 2x4 that I'm going to sit inside where the two 8-foot pieces join. And kind of the same thing here, but these will only be 20 inches tall so that it's just the same as the height of the bed. And then these sticking out will give me something for these to nail into. Everywhere that I have two boards that are coming together like end to end, or here dying into the edge of the 2x4, or stacking on top of each other, I'm going to use something called a Craig jig, and I'm going to drill holes using the Craig jig that kind of slant into the end of the board, and then you put the screw in and it goes kind of a little bit diagonally through the end of this board into the other board. So where I've got things connecting, for the most part I'm going to be using these, especially if I have, hold on a second. Especially in areas where I have, like this board is on top of this board, I'm going to connect that with 3 or 4 Craig screws here. And then where the corners are with the 2x4s, I may just use screws 3 or 4 inches long straight into the board that's dying into that corner board. But for sure, when the boards are on top of each other, that's where I'll use those Craig screws. So I have my end pieces cut, and now I just need to drag the stuff around to where it's going to go, and I'll show you that in a minute. This is the Craig jig. You stick your board in here. These 2 pieces come off for storage. They're just there to kind of help stabilize your board if it's a little bit wider. But you stick it in here. There's a piece back here that holds it steady. You push this lever down to kind of stabilize it and tighten it in there. And then it comes with a special bit that's bigger and has a, I'm not sure what this is called, something back here that kind of stops it. And depending on how thick your board is, I'm using 2x10s. So the 2 refers to a nominal thickness. It's actually about 1.5 inches thick. So I've got this on the 1.5 inches. If you have boards that are bigger, you have to get a slightly different version, an extra large Craig jig. But anyways, so, and there's 3 holes here. So depending on if you're making something where you would want 2 holes right next to each other, I just use this kind of slightly middle one, and I'm not measuring. I'm putting 1 hole kind of, 2 holes kind of spaced closer to the edges of the board on one edge, and then I'm going to flip it around and put 2 holes kind of a little closer together towards the middle, so you can see on this one. That way it doesn't matter, once I get around to the side of the house to start building it, I can stack the boards in either order that I want, and I'll just have a couple extra holes on one edge, and that's okay. It doesn't take very long. So see, so you just stick this in here. It guides the drill. You just let it drill in there until it goes all the way up to where this makes it stop, and then pop this out. And there you have kind of a slanted hole for the screw to go in, and it'll go through and come out along the edge and help connect this to the next board. Got a bunch more boards to drill some holes in. I'm ready to start putting the pocket holes in my 8-foot boards. I've got all of the end pieces done for the 16-foot beds. Now what I'm doing is putting pocket holes in the 8-foot boards. Because they're so long, I am having to adjust and put the jig slightly differently. I've taken the 2 little side pieces off because these are too long. They just wobble too much. And what I do is I just kind of like nest the board in there with this kind of on its, turned on its sides kind of, and then clamp it down. And I just have to make sure that this is up against this base right here, and then I can just drill that way. And I don't think I explained it very well in the last part about why I'm putting holes on both edges. It's so that when I have this board stacked on the next board, I can drill from the top down to the bottom board and from the bottom board up to the top board. And the reason I'm putting them in different spacing is so that there's more strength and it's more secure, because if I put the screws in the exact same spots, well, for one thing, I wouldn't be able to use them from both directions because they would overlap or be in the same place. The other thing is it spreads out and creates more points of connection between the two boards, but it's also coming from different directions. So I just feel like that makes a stronger, it's a stronger way to put those two boards stacked on top of each other so that they stay more stable. It's more stable. So I'm going to get holes drilled in some of the 8-foot boards, and then I'm going to see if I can start putting these puppies together. I'm ready to start trying to put some things together. When you're doing something by yourself like this, the first part is the hardest, and you have to get a little creative to try to get things to come out square. So what I'm trying to do right now is get this support attached to the end of this board, and then I will get the piece that is the short side coming out this way. So I've kind of propped things up to try to get everything on the same level, and now I'm going to put 3 screws in from the outside, and then I've got pocket holes here if I want to try to make it sturdier to go in this way. I'm probably going to wait on those until after I get more of it put together, because I may have to flex things a little bit to try to get it as square and level as possible. So I don't want to put too much in there, because pocket screws sometimes once they've gone in are a little harder to get back out because of being at that angle. So I'm going to just use 3, I think they're 4-inch screws, and they're deck screws, so they are fine to be outside. They've got like a coating on them. They have a different kind of a head shape. They're not, I think it's called star. It's kind of hard to see there. It's like a star, and that in theory should help it be less likely to be stripped with the pressure and tension of going through so much. I did also, though, learn from last year's garden build, and I have pre-drilled some holes here where these screws are going to go in to try to minimize frustration and make it a little faster to get those going in, so that once I've got it kind of set, it goes in a little faster. So I'm going to work on trying to get these together, and then I'll show you hopefully once I've got this corner put together. Once I get that done, it'll be a lot easier to keep going. Well, this is how far I've gotten today. It doesn't look like a lot, but doing it by myself, it can be kind of a challenge to get things connected. So we'll see. I think this is a good start. I've got the other end pieces cut for both this end and the part that'll go over here, and then there'll be 2 smaller beds in the middle and fencing kind of all the way around, and everything will be pretty connected. So you can kind of get an idea of the size of this bed, and I think this is a good start. So thanks for joining me here today for part 1 of building my new garden enclosure in Aunt Susan's garden.